Good morning, Oman. You're listening to 90.4 Oman FM live here in Studio 1. This is a Jumpstart on Your Nation station. We are pleased to say that today we are joined by a friend of the show, someone we've had on previously, Dr. Mohamed Al Yahyaei, who is a genetic resources expert at the Oman Animal and Plant Genetic Resources Center in the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation. Welcome, Dr. Mohamed. It's such a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Talal. It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks
you.
A lot. Dr. Mohamed, you came here last time to talk to us about mushrooms.
Yes.
And specifically the fact that you had discovered new species of mushrooms in the governorate of Dhofar. Yes. And how are things going with the mushrooms?
Going great.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was 8 months ago,
Yes.
around 8-9 months ago.
Yeah.
We still continuing that research. We took new samples, and we're planning to take new samples in the coming season.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Well, we look forward to finding out more about that when you announce any research findings, inshallah. But for today, we're here to discuss the International Day for Biological Diversity, which happened yesterday. And it's on the 22nd of May every year. And let's just get straight into it. What is biological diversity?
First of all, it happened yesterday in Oman, but since it's International Day, we are still, in some parts of the world, it's still the 21st.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Shout out to Japan or Australia.
United States,
Actually, no,
North America and South America, they're still on yesterday.
Yes, exactly.
So we technically still celebrating.
So technically,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about it. What is biological diversity?
Well,
biodiversity.
Biodiversity is biological diversity. Actually, it doesn't have very specific definition, but let's start with the very general definition: is the diversity of living organisms on our planet. This is the general definition. If we come to the numbers, we have around 9 million different species, different forms of life. These are animals, plants, different kind of microorganisms, fungi. The mushroom is one of them. So the total number so far is around 9 million. But this is not the exact number, because actually every day new species are discovered from different parts of the world, even from Oman, especially in the kingdoms of microorganisms. Scientists also continuously discovering new species from the ocean. This is the general definition of the biodiversity, but within each species, within each form of living organism, there are subspecies. So we can look at certain animal or plant and we think they are similar, but actually they are different genetically, which makes the biodiversity a definition which is, every day with the new techniques of sequencing the genome, we realized how diverse is the world, our world, the organisms. So that's why I said at the beginning, there is no exact definition. Every day, this definition is expanding through either discovering new species or discovering new genes and new makeup of genes. So I hope I give you a...
I think you did. Doctor, I do have a question.
Sure.
Microorganisms. You said how you're constantly discovering new microorganisms, including here in Oman. Now, microorganisms are micro. They're tiny. How do you go about discovering them? Where are you looking for these microorganisms? How do you come across new species? Do you just go and take random samples of something, or what?
You can take random samples, yes. You might discover them by chance. You're looking for something else. You look for, let's say, earthworms, and suddenly, while you are sequencing things on the soil, you realized a gene which is unique. There's nothing corresponding to it of what we know of microorganisms. Then you go and you start to isolate the microorganisms. You take a sample, you put it what we call a petri dish. It's a small, let's say, a culture collection or farm. Let's say it's a very small, tiny farm, this size, the hand size. And then the microorganisms start to grow. You isolate them, you put them under microscope, you magnify them 100 times. And then you realize that you look at these things for the first time. in your life, and then you're not sure, but you contact those who are specialized in these microorganisms, and then they can be also part of the research. You sequence them. Nowadays, we don't depend only on what we see, because it can be elusive sometimes. We depend also on the sequence, the genes. We sequence the genes. We build what is called phylogenetic tree, and then there are different branches. And if your organism make a distinct branch of this tree, it means that evolutionary, genetically, it's also different. Then you declare it is, you don't declare actually directly, you write a scientific paper, you send it to a journal, the journal send it to experts around the world, you don't know them, it's a total anonymous process, and then they tell you if your discovery is valid. This is the process.
You have made valid discoveries in the past, and what does it feel like to discover new species?
It's beautiful feeling. Nobody knows about it. You see it for the first time, you and your group, and you realized, I mean, you imagine the life on Earth is millions of years ago. You know, it started millions, billions actually. But the multicellular organisms, they started in millions, hundreds of millions. And these organisms have been there for all this time. And you reveal it to the world for the first time. So you can imagine, it's a beautiful feeling.
It sounds beautiful. It does. And I'm sure, I know one of the reasons I was so excited today about having you on the show is I know how much you love the work that you do, and it's great to have you here.
Yeah,
now back to biodiversity and the Biological Diversity International Day, which happened yesterday. Why is it so important to put a focus on biodiversity?
It's important because let's look at the basic things in our life. Our food, the variety of food, it comes from variety of organisms, different trees. So we cannot survive in one or two species or even 10 species. We need it for our food, first of all. But let's remember also that our medicine depends on biodiversity. Our antibiotics, they come from tiny microorganisms. So we survived, millions of people survived because of the antibiotics today. And they come from the microorganisms. The other thing also, if you look in this room, a lot of things actually is a result of the biodiversity. The wood, our clothes, comes from cotton, from a plant. But that's not everything. Our well-being is also dependent on biodiversity. Imagine we live in concrete cities, no plants, we don't have landscapes. That would affect our psychology, our evolution, our happiness drastically. So biodiversity is extremely important. We always look at biodiversity from our own perspective, what we can benefit from it. But actually there is something more. Biodiversity, as we mentioned at the beginning, it's a process, millions of years, and it has its own right to stay, to continue in this planet. So, and we are the only conscious beings. We are only conscious creatures. So, it's extremely important to preserve it and protect it.
Okay. Well, what is the current status of biodiversity here in the world?
Not so good. Actually, biodiversity is in a real crisis.
How so?
Well, let's look at the statistics. Studies published by United Nations and different independent researchers and organizations. 25% of plant and animal organisms assessed are threatened with extinction. 25%. So
it's a very large percentage.
Yeah, this is very large percentage. This is one of the big facts. There are 20% reduction in the average abundance, the number of species. There's a reduction of around 20%. So, and we don't need actually sometimes studies to realize this. Fishermen, divers, people in general, they can, especially those who are connected to nature, they realize that they don't see the same number of species, and sometimes they don't find certain species they are used to find in the nature. So yeah, biodiversity is in a real crisis at the moment. I'm talking about the global biodiversity.
What is the status of biodiversity in Oman? Do we have anything on that?
We are in a better situation than many parts of the world. We have, first of all, we have a very unique biodiversity in Oman. Most of these areas where this biodiversity exists is either protected or maintained in a, I would say, a sustainable way. Yeah, well, at the same time, we also have an idea. We have a databases for different organisms in Oman. There's monitoring programs. And there is more effort, I would say, here in Oman than maybe in compared to other parts of the world.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, you said 25% is being threatened. Why is it being threatened? How is it being threatened?
Well, the main reason is the human activities. Construction of cities, roads, destruction of natural habitats. And again, if we look at the statistics, 30% of the global lands have been degraded severely. 30%. So you see the equivalence. 25% threatened species. I mean, this is because of around 30% has been degraded. And especially in some areas where we actually there is no monitoring programs going on, but the degradation is more severe when it happens in very rich biodiversity areas like the Amazon, for example, in South America. So human activities is the main cause. If we go a little bit earlier in the history, if we compare the lands in the wetlands in 1970 to 2000, we have lost 85% of these existing habitats. So you can imagine the
only
huge
15%
amount
left.
Yeah, 85% just in 3 decades. And we need to have perspectives. Again, the biodiversity existed for hundreds of millions of years, and 300 years is nothing, is very, very short. And most of the destruction happened actually in the last century with the Industrial Revolution, with the expansion of the human population. In a very, very short time, compared to the evolutionary history, we managed to make a huge destruction in our planet.
Well, we know that this is happening, and what is Oman doing? What is the government doing to protect biodiversity? What is the role of the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation in protecting biodiversity?
We're doing all our best. First of all, there are different entities in Oman taking care of the biodiversity. There are some institutes that are taking the legal part, the administrative parts. In Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, where our center belongs to, Oman Animal and Plant Genetic Resource Center, we have research. It is a research center, and we have 4 sections. Let me give you an example of what we're doing in the animal sector. For example, the group is studying genetic differences or distinction of some domesticated animals. They also gather or collect and study, for example, the earthworms. Earthworms, part of the biodiversity. They have recently collected more than 4,000 different groups of earthworms from different parts of Oman to use it sustainably in different industries. One of them is the decomposition of raw organic materials. Other section in the scientific effort, we also study the coral reefs and the freshwater algae. These are all components of biodiversity. In plants, we have medicinal and aromatic plants. We also collect these. We have gene banks. One of the things we really need with this fast-moving world, we need to put a scenario too. If we cannot keep the biodiversity in the natural habitats, we need to prepare ourselves to get them if we need them one day, for any reason. And that's why we build gene banks. We have plant gene banks in collaboration of Nizwa University. We also have microorganisms gene bank. We collect all these tiny microorganisms and we keep them safe in a safe place. We also collect we have a gene banks for animals. So this is one effort. The other thing, what we need, I think, what the whole world need is a higher level of awareness. And the center and the ministry is doing this. We have, I don't know if you heard about Science Cafe. This is an event happened every month in a cafe in one of the malls. And it's attended by people who are interested in the topics. We talk about conservation. We talk about investment of genetic resources. We also run some competitions for youth, how to utilize the biodiversity or genetic resources sustainably. So we announce the competition. We have, I would say, more than 100 groups or teams. They compete, and those who win the competition, they go to a incubator, scientific incubator, for a couple of months to develop their idea. Sometimes it's a product based on genetic resources, and after the incubator, when their idea is mature enough, they go to a commercial accelerator.
Okay.
To reach the market. So
how can people join or attend Science Cafe?
They can follow us in Twitter or Instagram, Mawarid, Oman Animal and Plant Genetic Resources Center, and we announce all the events and the competitions there.
Okay, so monthly competitions.
It is
monthly
Science Cafe,
yes.
And this year it's the 10th season, so it has been running for 10 years successfully. Yeah. And what we call Manafa, translated as benefits. This is the 6th season. So, yeah.
Okay, we wish you the very best for that. Now, Dr. Mohamed, you're here today to talk about the International Biodiversity Day. And this year they had a theme, from agreement to action, build back biodiversity. We talked about how it is it's being threatened. We've lost a lot already. So my question here is, how is there a way to actually build back? How can it be built back? Why this theme?
There is a way. But it needs a lot of hard work and commitment. From agreement to action, they refer to the agreement that has been signed by 195 countries. So basically the whole world, and it has one big aim, what is called the 30 by 30 initiative. 30% of the world and sea areas need to be protected by 2030. Why 30%? Because the scientists, the researchers found out that this is the least area need to be protected for the biodiversity to start again rebuilding itself. Why 230? Because we don't have much time. We have to act very fast. So there is a way. It needs a lot of commitments from all parts of the world. And there are some countries that they already declared it's their national interest to reserve 30% of their lands by 2030.
And is Oman included?
Not yet, but we are working. Not declared, but I think they are working on it.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
You also attended an international conference in Montreal in Canada.
Yeah.
What was the general feel within the conference? Was it a sense of worry, or were there shows of no, we got this, we have it under control? What was the conference like?
No, everyone knows that biodiversity is in crisis. There's no doubt. Nobody denied that. I mean, 195 countries. I didn't hear any person saying we don't have a. My feeling was they all wanted to rescue the biodiversity because this is also their national interest. Why? Because what distracted the biodiversity is the ambitious economical goals, actually. But these goals, everyone realized it's a short term. And the World Bank in 2021, just 2 years ago, through different studies, warned countries that the growth, the economic growth that depends on the current way of utilizing biodiversity is not sustainable. And if we continue this approach, by 2030, there will be a reduction of the global economy by 2.7 trillions. So it's clear to everyone that the short-term economical goals is not going to help countries to sustain their biodiversity. So everyone agrees by 2030 we'll protect 30% of our lands and seas. And let's wait. So 2030 is not so far. It's in 7 years. And in my feeling, we will get closer. At the moment, it's 17% protected. My feeling we will get closer. I don't know if we will reach 30, but it's better than nothing.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Is there anything the public can do, or is this more of a expert or government-related responsibility? Is there something the public can do?
We need, first of all, in official level, we need more collaboration between different entities, especially at this critical time. We all need to set different entities, governmental, private sector, together, and we put clear strategies for how to preserve biodiversity by 2030 and even beyond that. I think this is extremely important. Let me go back to the question of what is the ministry is doing. The center also, Oman Animal and Plant Genetic Resource Center, launched a strategy in collaboration with all the entities in the governmental and private sector entities in Oman about the utilization of plants, Omani plants. So this is one thing we can do, and soon we will launch the domesticated animal strategy also. We established this strategy in collaboration with different entities. In public level, I think awareness and responsible choices when we come to habits of shopping, for example, we can always select. And these days we have the options. We have options to select a product that does not threaten certain biodiversity. There are some products we need to look at the content. If it contains certain plants or oil, we need to avoid these products because it's maybe thousands of kilometers away from us, this plantation. But again, when it comes to biodiversity, the boundaries between countries doesn't exist. Actually, what happens, for example, in Amazon is affecting us here directly, not even indirectly. It's because the lungs of the world is these rainforests. We have climate change, and the climate change is due to a rise of CO2. The CO2 does not select the countries that produce it. Actually, it spread the whole, the atmosphere. So we are affected, and that's why in the public level, awareness, selection of goods they are purchasing. And I think this is the main things they need to consider.
Okay. Well, Dr. Mohamed, is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude?
Thank you very much, Talal and Bidur. It's always a pleasure here to be here. It's part of our duties, our work, our commitment to talk to people, to reach out. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. And inshallah, by the time next year that this day comes around again, International Biodiversity Day, which is on May 22nd of each year. That was yesterday. And we hope to see even more improvement, inshallah, maybe be the 20%, inshallah. Fingers crossed.
No, we already have 17, so 10% extra, that would be 27. That would be great.
That would be great.
We reach almost
Close
there,
to
yeah.
30,
inshallah.
yes.
And inshallah, we'll have you back before then to talk more about all the work that is being done within the Oman Animal and Plant Genetic Resources Center, which is in the Ministry of Higher Education, Research and Innovation, where you are a genetic resources expert. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Mohamed Al Yahyaei. It truly is a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Talal. Thank you, Bidur.
We'll be right back, inshallah. Stay tuned to 90.4 Oman FM. This is Jumpstart.